Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with a Dicey review, and today we're going to learn to play the 2 to 4 player Meteo expansion for Flamme Rouge. The Meteo expansion comes with all of the components that you see here, including 13 total weather tokens, 4 depicting a specific weather condition, and 9 showing fair weather, and then 4 weather standees. These weather standees relate to the different weather conditions. To set up for the Meteo expansion, first set up like you would for a normal game of Flamme Rouge. After building the track, but before starting positions are determined, shuffle all 13 weather tokens together. Then deal out 1 weather token face up on each of the straight tiles except for the start and finish tile. Once this is done, you should have 7 tokens dealt out. Next, replace any of the weather tokens that don't show fair weather with their corresponding weather standee. You can place the standees adjacent to the tile that the weather token was on. After this has been done, you can place all of the weather tokens back in the box. Players would then complete setup by placing their riders as normal. Each weather standee will display a particular weather effect that will apply to all of the squares on a straight tile that it's assigned to. So for instance, this tailwind tile applies an effect to all of these squares. Each weather type has a different bonus or penalty that will affect gameplay in certain ways. We'll go over each tile now. The tailwind standee, showing this symbol, allows a rider that starts on this tile to draw 5 energy cards instead of their normal 4. So in this example, both green riders would get to draw an extra card when drawing their cards. The crosswind standee says that a rider on this tile can never give or receive slipstreaming to or from other riders. So in these examples, even though these riders would normally gain slipstreaming due to their position, because they're on the crosswind tile, this wouldn't occur as normal. The headwind standee states that a rider that starts on this tile draws 3 energy cards instead of their normal 4. So in the example we see here, both blue riders and the leading green rider only get to draw 3 energy cards for their turn. And the last type of weather standee is the wet terrain weather standee. The wet terrain standee states that if a rider ends their movement on this tile and they've lost 1 or more spaces of their movement due to being blocked by other riders, they have to resolve a crash. So let's say in this example, the blue sprinter is forced to play this 3 movement card. Just like in the base game, if a rider would end their movement on a fully occupied square, they have to stop behind it in the first square with a free lane. In this example, it would be this square. But if the square that they stop on is affected by the wet terrain standee, this rider would crash. To indicate this, lay the rider on its side, making sure that it's still in the same lane that it was while standing. No slipstreaming can happen to or from a square that has a crashed rider in 1 or more of its lanes. And if each of the lanes in a square has a crashed rider in it, the whole square is blocked, and a rider that would normally move through that blocked square has to stop on the closest free lane behind it. Once again, this may cause another crash to resolve. In the next round, when the crashed rider moves, stand the rider up and subtract 2 from the value of the card that they played. If the card that they played was a value 2, then the rider would simply stand up and move to the right-hand lane if possible. It's important to note that the penalty for crashing is applied after adjusting the value of a card because of any descent or supply zone. So in this example, if the blue rider played a value 2 card in a descent after a crash, they would first stand their rider up and then move them 3 squares. And it's also important to note that this rule doesn't modify the cap for ascent tiles. So you could still move a maximum of 5 squares, but you would have to play at least a 7 energy card to do that because of the penalty for the crash. Alright everyone, that was our video. Thanks so much for watching. We hope that it was helpful and we hope that it was informative. If you still have any questions about how to play the game, please comment below or email us directly at thedicey@gmail.com. If you want to hear more from the Dicey Review, you can listen to our Dicey Review podcast. It can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, pretty much any podcasting app. You can read our written reviews at thediceyreview.com and make sure and connect with us on social media or at our Board Game Geek Guild. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.